Hi, it's Ramsey Dewey at the JX Fight Club in Shanghai, China. And I've got to apologize for the background noise. I'm usually doing these in the morning when nobody's here, but today in the afternoon, we've got the kids' Taekwondo class going on here on the main floor, so please bear with me with the static noise in the background. So, I'm here today to answer a question from our friend Jason Smith, who asks the following question. Hey Jason, thank you so much for writing and the great question. He says, Ramsey, I'm turning 17. I'm about to go to college. Please tell me what to do. What I really want in life is to be a powerlifter and a martial artist. I want to compete in powerlifting, but I know in the future it won't be enough to feed me and my future family, although I will be happy if I choose it. Or go to college and study a course, knowing that I don't really want it as much as powerlifting and martial arts, but it will produce enough money for me in the future. I want to know your response, Ramsey. I know you are very knowledgeable and have wisdom. I'm waiting for your response. Well, hey, thanks again. I appreciate that question, and it's got me thinking about a few things. It made me think about when I was 17 and I was on my way to college, and at the time I felt that whatever I chose in college at that time would dictate the rest of my life. And since then, I've learned it's not as cut and dry as that. Okay? I'll get more into that in a bit, but I think that's fantastic that you want to be both a powerlifter and a martial artist. Because honestly, there are way too many martial artists out there who are terrible athletes, who would benefit tremendously from powerlifting and strength training, Olympic lifting, basically becoming better athletes. Anything that makes you a better athlete makes you a better martial artist. So I think that's a fantastic niche that you can fill. So a lot of guys out there are great at powerlifting. And a lot of guys out there are great at martial arts, and not too many of them are great at both. So if you're passionate about both of those things, that's something that you could definitely parlay into a niche career. Now, as far as professional athletics goes, when I was younger, I was under the assumption that professional athletics was this thing that only a select few people would ever do, and they would be, millionaires who are well taken care of. And that's not always the case, especially when it comes to martial arts and more niche sports like powerlifting. And when I say niche sports, I mean it's not like football, basketball, baseball, the big sports that make the really, really big money. Okay? If you read Jack Dempsey's book, Championship Fighting, toward the end he talks about the difference between a professional fighter who works a full-time job on the side to support himself and a professional fighter who is at the top of his game, making top dollar, who spends most of his downtime loafing around, in his own words, loafing around. Most pro fighters, most pro martial artists, most professionals in any sport really are the guys who have to work on the side. One thing your question made me think of was one of my old coaches and my good friend Mark Brewer. He's the head coach at the University of Grappling in Utah. Go check them out if you're in the area. It's one of the most fantastic grappling schools ever. Okay? And his school and his approach is very unique because it's not just Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And it's not just a hybrid of jiu-jitsu and wrestling, but there is a huge focus on lifting and athletics and, Olympic lifts especially. And yes, powerlifting, of course. And a lot of people are shocked and surprised when they find out that running this gym and competing, which he does at an extremely high level, is not his full-time job. He is an engineer. And he had this to say. He posted this on Facebook. I'm going to read it. Quite a few people ask me how I grind full-time with an engineering gig. how I went through university paid for by my own work, how I run the gym, train myself, and raise a family without falling over and collapsing. And then he said this, it's because I have 3 daughters that need me. That hit home when I read it, because I also have children, 2 daughters. And it's a different thing when you have the kids as opposed to the conceptual kids, future kids, when you have them and you realize, I have to go to work today. I have to. Doesn't matter if I don't want to, I have to because they need me. Now, when I was 17, I don't think I was able to understand that, but I think you're ahead of the game because you already expressed this responsibility for your future family, and that's commendable. That's awesome. My hat goes off to you, sir. And that's something I wish that I would have paid more attention to in college. I went to college 2 times. The first time, after high school, I went to college because that is what people did. That's what I felt you were supposed to do. I was always told you go to college, and then you get a job, and then you have a family and work until you die, or something like that. And so I went to college with that mindset. Okay, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to study and then graduate and get a job and work until I die or whatever. And fortunately, my dreams were dashed apart. Fortunately, because, I say fortunately because that taught me a very important lesson. My dreams of graduating through college and getting a normal job and being like everybody else, it didn't work out. Because why be like everybody else when you can aspire to something better, when you can aspire to something much more interesting? Now, I'm not saying shirk your responsibilities, not at all. Not at all. So what happened? I finished college, and the first thing I did after college, I applied for a job with the FBI. I wanted to be a special agent. Well, I won't say I really wanted to, but I felt that was a viable option. So I had a bachelor's degree, I spoke a foreign language, and I met their standards. I applied, I took their tests. I passed, and it was looking very promising. And the more I found out about it, the deeper I got into the process of the application to become a special agent with the FBI, I realized this is not what I want to do with my life. I mean, my hat goes off to those guys who do, those special agents who, serve their country. I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, it's a tough gig, guys. It's a tough job. Somebody has to do it. But I realized that was not what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to do something different. Now, what exactly that was, it didn't come to me right away. I mean, I had a passion for martial arts. I had a passion for dance. I tried lots and lots of different things. I worked all kinds of jobs. And I learned a lot from the process, but ultimately I decided I really want to make money off of something that I'm passionate about. I want to wake up in the morning excited to go to work, excited to face the day, as opposed to the exact opposite of that. And so I remember talking to my older brother, and at the time I was really upset. I was in this financial hole. I was hurting financially, and my older brother, he was really well off at the time financially, and I kind of half expected him to just bail me out with some money. And fortunately, he did not. He gave me something much, much more valuable, which was this advice. He said, Ramsey, you're focusing on what you can't do. And that will not help. You have to focus on what you can do in this situation. See, I was telling myself, well, I can't do this job because of that, and I can't do this because of that, and I can't make this money because of that, and I can't whatever. And all that happens when we tell ourselves, I can't, is that self-fulfilling prophecy. We cannot. If that's where our focus is, that's where we will go. So I started asking myself honestly, well, what can I do? And at first, the list of what I could do seemed very small and very unappealing, but I focused on it. What can I do? And I thought, well, I'm passionate about martial arts. I'm passionate about physical culture. I'm passionate about teaching people. Let's put some of those things together, and maybe I can teach martial arts or teach fitness or something like that. My older brother is very pragmatic because, he understands that it's not just about wishful thinking. We actually have to do something. And so he would always tell me, okay, that's good. Now you have the goal. Now how will you accomplish that? So I started taking an inventory, making a list about how to accomplish that thing. And I thought, well, if I want to teach group fitness classes, I guess I need some further education. If I want to be a personal trainer, I need some sort of certification. So I looked into my options, and I looked at the local community college. And they had a program, Fitness Technology, which is a program in group fitness instruction and personal training. And so I went to college again at a cheap 2-year community college, getting a degree, an associate's degree in fitness technology. And the very first class I took was this class on basically personal training, and I learned something super important from that class, which is you make your own career. Nobody gives it to you. I remember it wasn't an internship, but I went to a bunch of different gyms and followed personal trainers around and shadowed them and watched what they did and asked them questions. And I'd recommend that too. Like go to people who are in the field that interests you and ask them if you can shadow them. Just follow them around. See what it is they do. Ask them questions. Ask them like what obstacles they face. And well, I tried the personal trainer thing for a while, and it was, there were ups and downs. And what I do now is, it's different. It's quite a bit different. In many ways, it's the same, but I built on that. And I parlayed my experience into something very specific. Now, my entire focus is teach people how to win fights. And yes, people will still come to me asking for fitness training. Hey, I want to lose a few pounds. I want to get in shape. I want to get stronger, whatever. But I let them know, first and foremost, what I do is teach people how to win fights. So, if you give me 100%, if you fight for this, I'll coach you. Now, we don't always have to make money off of what we are passionate about. My friend Mark, for example, and he makes his payday from engineering, which is something he's good at. I don't know how passionate he is about it. I know he's really passionate about martial arts. He's really passionate about grappling and lifting. and that sort of thing. I'm going to tell you a story about my granddad. My granddad, he lived in northern England his whole life. He got married young when he was a teenager. My grandparents got married very young. That was very common back then. And had children early on. And when you're in that situation, you have to work. And you have to do whatever you can to pay the bills, whatever you can to feed your children. And he did. He became a coal miner and worked his whole life as a miner in the collieries of northern England. Back in the day where you did it with a pickaxe, where you'd go underground and risk life and limb in a dark, dark pit and never see the sun, because when you come up, it's dark. And it's difficult for me to vocalize this, that I will love that man till the day I die. Because he lived in the dark. He lived his life in the dark so that his family didn't have to. And that I wouldn't be here today if he didn't. And that man's job had no joy to it, no passion. And because of that, guys like me are able to do something that we actually are excited to wake up in the morning for. So if that is the path that life takes you, it might feel like it at the time, but man, if you do that for the people that need you, that is not a waste of your time, that is not a waste of your life. But at the same time, my friend, it sounds like you have opportunities that my granddad did not. Opportunities that didn't exist 100 years ago. I mean, today, there are so many ways to parlay your passion into a living that didn't exist, when I went to college. I mean, YouTube, for example. There are so many guys out there who are passionate about powerlifting and martial arts, who make a living on YouTube, making videos and just talking about what they love. I don't have that opportunity because, one, I live in the People's Republic of China, and you cannot monetize your videos when you live in China. And two, I simply don't have enough subscribers. Well, that's okay. That's okay. But you know what? When YouTube started, I had no idea that it was a thing anybody would ever be able to make a living off of. And you know what? When you finish college, it's going to be a whole different world. Making a living is probably going to be a whole different situation. The value of a college degree is probably going to be very different. Now, a lot of people out there are saying, oh, it's not even worth it to go to college anymore. And it's different than it used to be. Maybe 50 years ago, if you went to college, that was a much more rare thing. And so it was almost a guarantee you'd get a decent job. And that's not necessarily the case anymore. But there's still value in going to college. The first time I went to college, I was pretty young and I was pretty naive, but I learned a lot about life. And not just in the classroom. I learned a lot about life from the friends that I made, from the people I associated with, from the clubs I joined, from the extracurricular activities I did, from the jobs I worked at college. I mean, it was a fantastic learning life experience. And whether you go to a fancy, expensive college or or an inexpensive community college, I mean, those experiences are out there. My advice would be, however, don't get into debt over college if you can help it. I was fortunate enough to avoid debt coming out of college, and I know some folks, some very honest, hardworking folks who are still straddled with debt from college decades later, and that sucks. So please do everything you can to avoid debt. Apply for scholarships, work. If you have to, take a less expensive option. What else? I did jot down a few notes as I was reading your letter. Let's see if I touched on all the points I wanted to touch on. But, yeah. Jason, my friend, it's not a one or the other situation. We don't have to make this a false dilemma. A false dilemma, it's a logical fallacy, and that's another thing I learned in college, logical fallacies. It's a logical fallacy where we believe there are only two options, when in reality, there are all kinds of other variables that present other options. But we have to think outside the box sometimes. Because so often in life we get stuck in the idea of a false dilemma. I have to do this, or I have to do this. And I'm going to tell you, why not both? Because you can go to college, and you can get a job that pays the bills, and you can do powerlifting, and you can do martial arts. Right? Now, you won't necessarily, get rich or famous off of any one of those things, but if you apply yourself, and again, you sound like a smart guy, and so I believe you can. I believe you have that potential. You can do all of those things. You can support a family, and you can do what you're passionate about and be excited to wake up in the morning to do it again and again and again. So I hope that helped. I hope that helped. So thank you again for asking. Any other questions any of you have, please leave them in the comments below or send me an email, ramseydewey@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching. Now, get out there and train, guys.